Hello. Today we're going to talk about organizational design, really just a few terms that we'll need to know throughout the semester. We're using as a base case what's called a functional organization. Now, a functional organization is the classic kind of organization and organizational chart that dates back probably 100 years or more, and it's really being supplanted by lots of more innovative designs, but we're going to just use this to teach some basic vocabulary and go over it for a while. This is sort of a rendering of a classic chart. We'll give you something a little bit better in a moment. But and there are some terms that you'll need to know as well. These are terms that we often use when we're discussing organizational designs. Hierarchy of authority. I'm sure you know what a hierarchy is, where information and decisions travel down generally. That's sort of the standard kind of a hierarchy from the top, from the president or the CEO down through the vice presidents to the divisional managers and beyond. We'll be looking at an organization in a moment. Division of labor is obviously the different things. People have different responsibilities within an organization, and that's really what we're looking at here via the division of labor. A span of control basically refers to how many people work for one person or another, and there have been lots of changes, and sort of from the standard kind of 7 to 12 as a standard as a large span of control to any different number, largely because of technology and other kinds of intervening circumstances, and we'll talk about that too. Line and staff positions we'll go over as well. So these are the terms that you'll need to know. We'll be using these throughout the term. We'll be talking about a lot of these much more innovative and new business forms when we get to that point much later in the term, but we'll be referring to these things throughout the term. So these line and staff positions. Line positions are generally, they're connected by solid lines on an organizational chart, and those are the sort of standard kinds of reporting relationships that you would expect to see. Staff personnel are those people that do sort of background research, provide technical advice, and they generally make recommendations, but they're not in that straight reporting line. Often those are depicted as dotted lines. They're sometimes called dotted line relationships. You may have a staff relationship to human resources where you as the line manager actually do the hiring, but the staff position advises you on how to conduct the search, how to do things legally, how to do things effectively. Legal offices are often staff positions as well. Now let's take a look here at an organizational chart that looks a lot like our university here. It's not actually our university. You'll see that it includes some line and staff relationships as an example for you. You'll also see that the president has reporting to him 4, in this case, vice presidents. We actually have more than that. The ones that you're probably familiar with, I use this because it's something that we're all familiar with. Most likely you're familiar with academic affairs, which is the classes, the deans, the department chairs, and the professors, and then student affairs is something that you would know about too, most likely. But there are these other vice presidents. Each has a unit reporting to him or her, and that unit that's reporting to them, that's not a person. None of these involve, well, the top ones involve often a person, but as you get further down, each one of these boxes refers to a unit, which can be 10 or 20 or hundreds or thousands of people. And we'll use a real example, a more business example here. This is the top line of an organization where you've got the 4 functions. We call this a functional organizational chart, and that's the reason that we call it that. We'll be talking a lot about what other types of charts there are, what other types of organizational structures or designs there are. We'll be talking a lot about that later on in the term, and actually throughout the term, which is why we're spending time now on this base case. So you might have a vice president or a director of managing, of engineering, accounting, marketing, and if we blow that up a little bit bigger, okay, so we change the engineering to research and development, but here you've got research. This is a production, a factory type arrangement. You've got product line 1, product line 2, product line 3, and all that production takes place under, we'll say in this case, a vice president for production. In marketing, you've got 4 units, in this case, reporting to that marketing vice president. Advertising, sales, you can see market research, market planning. In finance, you've got capital acquisition, shareholder relations, and accounting, for example. Now, what you'll notice about this is this will work really well if you're in a very sort of a stable, defined market with known competitors, and the production of each unit is managed separately and managed separately from those other functions. But what if there's something about something new about an organization, something new about the environment, where there are new products or new competitors, and your production people may not be that plugged into that. You may hear about it from your salespeople. You may hear about it. They may come into remember, these are open organizations, may come in from the environment through the market research people. The connection you'll see between the market research people and the production people is fairly circuitous. You've got to go up through the marketing vice president. And again, remember, each of these boxes at the bottom, this sales box, there's probably a director of sales there. But beneath that, there could be 3 or 4 more levels, but certainly many, many people reporting up through that through that box. So you have to report all the way up through there. The information travels up through marketing because, again, these are designed for information and decisions to travel down. But somehow you force it up through that system, around through perhaps the president, who's the only one really responsible for the whole product, over to the production unit, and then down to where it can actually make a difference, where that information can actually be put into play. So there's a real problem with communication in an organization like this. There can also be a problem culturally, because finance people, marketing people, they tend to have sort of different approaches to things. And when you keep them separate like that, even though it's really it's useful because you've got a career ladder within these organizations, within these different, we call them silos sometimes, and within these different stovepipes, within these different very separate units, you've got probably superior training, you have good relationships within that organization, within that part of the organization. These are all advantages that exist, and probably are certainly the reason that this type of organization has endured as long as it has. However, in the modern and very turbulent era, we'll find that a lot of these functional organizations are now being replaced by, again, more innovative organizations that are better able to respond to the changes in the environment. Let's take a quick look here at some of the advantages and disadvantages of a functional organization. You'll see that you've got the strengths include that there is efficiency, that people are there together, you know where to go to find what you need, developing specialized skills, again, economies of scale, all the things that we just mentioned. The weaknesses, the key is problem responding quickly to external changes. And external changes are the way of the world, the way of today's world. And there's a narrow view of goals, which people think in terms of what's within their unit, and they're not thinking of the product in general. You'll see that when we talk about more innovative, more modern types of arrangements, where you divisionalize and sort of get these people working together, getting the R&D people, they always want to do cool things. The finance people always want to keep prices down, keep costs down. Marketing people, they want to keep the cash register ringing, and maybe they're not that plugged into the same values of the production people who want big runs, because those economies of scale drive prices down or drive costs down. So these are sort of cultural differences that can really be a problem in an organizational structure like this, that perpetuates those kinds of differences and adapts to or internalizes those cultural differences. Again, one other aspect of this lack of variety, you've got people working together, working on projects that they seem to be continually doing pretty much the same thing. They're not integrated with the rest of the organization, with the other tasks that people are doing. Cross-functional communication, which of course was what we started with. Now, just one other aspect of organizations that we'll be talking about a lot is as I said, span of control, how many people you've got working for you. Realize that you as a manager, if you have a flatter span of control, which we have here, meaning you have more people reporting to you, and each of those boxes, again, could be a lot more than one person. But even, don't focus on the fact that there are 4 people reporting to everybody at the bottom, and or except for the chief executive, and then everybody else has 2 people reporting to them. Those are just symbolic of possibly something much larger. But know that with a relatively narrow span of control, which is the traditional kind of an organization, the traditional functional organization, with that narrow span of control, you've got a tall organization. That means there are more levels of management. More levels of management means often less efficiency. Now that we've moved to flatter hierarchies, flatter organizational structures, in a flat organization, you've got fewer levels of managers, so obviously there are fewer management jobs available, fewer managerial jobs available. So this I'll call it progress, but this change in the environment works to some extent to your disadvantage because you will have fewer opportunities to become a manager, which is why we want to make you as excellent a manager as we can, as excellent a candidate as we can, and you want to strive to that too, because it's a very competitive world out there. So we'll be talking about these. I'll be referring to these terms throughout the semester, which is why I spent this brief little mini lecture to talk about this. But we'll move on to a lot of other organizational structures, which we'll also mention throughout the term, and then we'll focus on a lot in 1 or 2 sessions at the end. Thank you.